On September 3, 1943, at 0547 hours, Captain Daniel Pritchard climbed into the cockpit of his B-24J Liberator at Benghazi Main, Libya, studying the modified nose section that had caused more structural failures than enemy fire in the previous 6 weeks. 27 years old, 51 combat operations, zero trust in what had been attached to the forward fuselage. The B-24J featured a new power turret nose that added 1,200 pounds farther forward than any Liberator he'd previously commanded. Throughout the 8 weeks preceding September, the 9th Air Force had lost 89 B-24s across North Africa. Without effective frontal defensive coverage, German interceptors devastated bomber formations above the Mediterranean. Messerschmitt Bf-109s attacked head-on where handheld nose guns couldn't respond accurately. Focke-Wulf 190s swept through formations from 12 o'clock level, targeting aircraft whose bombardiers couldn't track fast enough. Aircrews designated it the killing zone. Few survived 35 missions. The solution seemed logical. If nose gunners couldn't effectively defend against frontal assaults, install a powered turret system. Consolidated's engineers transformed everything on the B-24H that limited forward firepower. Power turret installed. Nose structure reinforced with additional framing. Forward center of gravity adjusted. Electrical system capacity increased. Supplementary wiring harnesses installed throughout the forward fuselage. Enhanced hydraulic lines routed to the nose compartment. They named it the B-24J, the Frontal Fortress. Consolidated's Fort Worth plant completed 428 conversions by August. The 98th Bombardment Group at Benghazi received them in mid-August. Colonel Frederick Walsh selected 15 crews to perform the initial combat assessment. Pritchard received aircraft number 42-73149. His crew designated it Thunderhead. The weight distribution became problematic. Standard B-24Hs climbed to 22,000 feet in 31 minutes. The B-24J required 47 minutes with constant trim adjustments. The control characteristics felt different, nose-heavy. The flight engineer who'd evaluated it at Fort Worth cautioned Pritchard the forward weight affected longitudinal stability, yet the defensive capability. Pritchard had never witnessed protection like this on a bomber's nose. The power turret alone could neutralize a Messerschmitt before it reached effective firing distance. Complete frontal coverage achieved, every attack angle addressed with concentrated firepower. The mission briefing was direct. Escort the formation to Wiener Neustadt. Strike the aircraft factories. 15 B-24Js distributed throughout the bomber stream. Lead element, low squadron, tail end position, wherever German fighters typically concentrated. Pritchard initiated engine start at 0618 hours. All 4 Pratt & Whitney R-1830s operated normally. The control tower authorized departure at 0645. 137 B-24s launched. Target time, 11:15 hours. If you want to learn how Pritchard's Frontal Fortress performed against the Luftwaffe, go ahead and smash that like button. Every like helps us bring these remarkable accounts to light. And click that subscribe button immediately. Back to Pritchard. The formation reached the Austrian border at 10:38 hours. Flak bursts scattered across the sky over the Alps. Radio communications confirmed German fighters scrambling from bases near Vienna. Pritchard's flight engineer had reported fuel consumption tracking higher than calculated. The B-24J burned additional fuel compensating for the forward weight during climb. Wiener Neustadt materialized through broken clouds at 11:09 hours. The primary formation released their bomb loads and reversed course. Lightened B-24s accelerated faster, climbed more efficiently. Pritchard pushed his throttles forward. Thunderhead started experiencing control issues. The standard B-24s achieved 181 mph. Pritchard had his throttles at maximum rated power. Thunderhead managed 174 mph. His flight engineer had anticipated this. Major Richard Thompson, 33 years old, 425 hours maintaining B-24s before the J variant deployment. He studied the instrument panel and showed concern. Number 2, engine cylinder head temperature approaching warning limits. The additional nose weight and altered aerodynamics made the engines work harder than operational parameters intended. Thompson advised reducing number 2 power before damage occurred. Thunderheads slowed to 167 mph. The main formation had opened to 3 miles separation, then 4 miles. Pritchard noticed the other 14 B-24Js falling behind throughout their assigned formations, every aircraft struggling with weight-induced performance degradation. The radio officer transmitted from his station. Technical Sergeant Charles Bennett had observed contrails at their 8 o'clock high position. German fighters ascending to intercept. Messerschmitt Bf-109s from Jagdgeschwader 27, based at Bad Voslau. 9 aircraft, maybe 12. They were selecting stragglers. Pritchard keyed his intercom. All defensive positions prepare for engagement. The nose turret was rotating smoothly. The ammunition feed systems showed operational status. All gun positions were manned and ready. The first Messerschmitt approached from their 5 o'clock, range 1,300 yards. Pritchard's tail gunner engaged at 850 yards. Tracer rounds arced toward the diving fighter. The German aviator banked away and climbed without engaging. The follow-up attack developed from 11 o'clock high. 2 Messerschmitts in echelon formation. Pritchard's nose turret gunner tracked the lead fighter and fired a 5-second burst. 50 caliber rounds impacted across the Bf-109's wing route. Black smoke streamed from the fighter. It inverted and dove toward the mountains. Bennett verified the kill from his position. The second Messerschmitt abandoned the attack. For 7 minutes, the B-24J's defensive systems operated as designed. 5 more German fighters maneuvered nearby. 5 additional attacks broke off without pressing home. The focused fire from the power turret created a defensive barrier no aviator wanted to penetrate, but Thunderhead's performance continued deteriorating. The main formation had expanded to 7 miles ahead, then 8 miles. Pritchard could scarcely track the bomber formation against the afternoon haze. Thompson reported fuel state. They'd burned 215 gallons above estimates during ascent and combat maneuvering. At present power settings, they had 81 minutes to reach Benghazi. The formation would touch down in 64 minutes. Another pair of Messerschmitts appeared at 2 o'clock. These pilots didn't disengage. They'd determined the B-24J couldn't maintain formation integrity, couldn't evade. The German fighters orbited beyond range, observing the bomber fall farther behind, waiting for the precise moment to coordinate attacks from opposing vectors. Pritchard advanced both throttles again. Number 2 engine temperature climbed back toward critical. Thompson monitored the gauge without comment. The frontal fortress with enhanced firepower had become the isolated target it was intended to shield. The coordinated attack developed at 11:43 hours. 5 Messerschmitts from divergent vectors, high right, low left, level from 12 o'clock, 2 more from the rear quarter. Pritchard possessed limited evasive options. The B-24J turned adequately, but the forward weight made aggressive maneuvering dangerous. He held course and altitude. His gunners commenced firing. The nose turret engaged the frontal attacker. The top turret rotated right. The ball turret swung left. Both waist gunners fired simultaneously. Spent brass cascaded through the fuselage. The aircraft trembled from the combined recoil of multiple gun positions firing. The lead Messerschmitt's cockpit exploded. The fighter rolled violently right and fell away, streaming debris. The high attacker disengaged prematurely. The low attacker pressed his approach and fired a sustained burst. 20mm cannon rounds struck Thunderhead's right wing. 2 hydraulic lines severed. Thompson reported hydraulic fluid streaming across the nacelle. Bennett reported damage assessment. Right main landing gear hydraulic system destroyed. They'd need to manually extend the gear for landing if they survived. Thompson verified fuel remaining. 76 minutes to Benghazi at present consumption. The formation had stretched to 9 miles ahead and widening. They were alone over enemy territory with German fighters maintaining contact. The radio activated. Another B-24J crew from the 376th Bombardment Group. Captain James Morrison flying aircraft 42 to 731 Flight 6. His bomber had similarly fallen behind. Two B-24Js now isolated from the formation, both experiencing performance degradation, both consuming fuel beyond planned margins. Morrison proposed they coordinate. Combined defensive fire from both bombers might discourage the Germans. Pritchard concurred. Morrison descended from 23,000 feet to align with Thunderhead's altitude at 21,400 feet. The Messerschmitts circled more deliberately now, 7 visible, possibly 9. They weren't engaging two bombers in mutual defense, but they weren't withdrawing either. At 11:57 hours, Pritchard crossed the Austrian border outbound. The Adriatic Sea extended gray and featureless below. 143 miles to Benghazi, 47 minutes flying time at their current ground speed. Number 2 engine was critically overheated. Thompson had pulled power back 4 times. They couldn't hold altitude longer. Thunderhead descended through 21,000 feet, 20,600, 2,200 feet. Morrison transmitted that his number 3 engine oil pressure was falling dangerously. He throttled back to prevent seizure. His B-24J decelerated to 162 mph. Both aircraft were faltering, both crews watching fuel quantities decrease toward reserves, both hoping the German fighters wouldn't follow them over water. At 12:14 hours, 4 Messerschmitts materialized at their 9 o'clock high. They'd pursued the stragglers to the coastline. Pritchard's tail gunner identified the intercept, range 1,500 yards, and closing. The fighters descended through 20,000 feet. Their cannons commenced firing at 900 yards. Pritchard couldn't climb, couldn't accelerate adequately, couldn't maneuver sharply enough to defeat their attack. The B-24J had become a vulnerable target with empty sea all around. Pritchard's nose turret gunner responded. Technical Sergeant Raymond Cole, 26 years old, former trap shooting instructor from Montana. He'd never tracked targets at these speeds and altitudes. The lead Messerschmitt closed to 700 yards. Cole adjusted his point of aim. The German pilot executed evasive maneuvers, jinked right, left, descended 20 degrees. His wingman replicated the movements. All 4 fighters fired at 450 yards. Cannon shells penetrated Thunderhead's tail section. 1 round detonated in the rudder assembly. Another punched through the fuselage 3 feet aft of Cole's turret. The aircraft lurched. Pritchard sensed the controls deteriorate. Thompson moved back to inspect damage. The rudder cables showed integrity, but the trim actuator was jammed. Pritchard would need to physically control the aircraft throughout the return flight. The Messerschmitts repositioned for continuation. Morrison's B-24J engaged with all available guns. The combined firepower from both bombers filled the airspace with defensive fire. The German fighters reversed course and climbed back to holding altitude. At 12:29 hours, 8 Republic P-47 Thunderbolts emerged from the south. Long-range escort fighters returning from a sweep over Yugoslavia. They'd monitored the distress calls about stragglers under attack. The Thunderbolts descended toward the Messerschmitts. The German pilots recognized them and turned north toward Austria. The P-47s didn't follow into enemy airspace. They formed on both B-24Js and waggled their wings in acknowledgement. Escort to friendly territory. Pritchard verified his fuel. 48 minutes remaining at current burn rate. 61 miles to base. They'd arrive with minimum fuel, but the modification program had fundamental flaws. He recognized it now. The B-24J functioned superbly as a defensive gun platform. The nose turret could destroy any fighter that approached frontally. The power turret alone had revolutionized frontal defense. The weight distribution made it hazardous. The forward-mounted turret shifted the center of gravity dangerously forward. The B-24J defended itself effectively but couldn't maintain formation. Degraded performance, compromised stability, elevated fuel consumption pulling them behind, making them isolated, transforming them from defenders into targets. Morrison transmitted at 12:43 hours. His number 3 engine had failed completely. Oil pressure 0. He'd feathered the propeller and secured the engine. His B-24J descended through 14,000 feet on 3 engine power. Thompson ran calculations. Morrison wouldn't reach Benghazi, possibly not even land. His fuel consumption on 3 engines was prohibitive. Benghazi appeared at 12:58 hours. Morrison headed for the closest suitable field, Burqa 2 emergency strip on the eastern approach. He contacted the tower and declared an emergency. They granted immediate clearance. Pritchard observed Morrison's B-24J descend toward the emergency runway. 1 bomber struggling home on 3 engines, another damaged and barely manageable. Both aircraft required major repair before operational status. At 13:21 hours, Thunderhead landed at Benghazi. Pritchard managed the landing with the jammed trim system. The controls functioned adequately with 18 seconds before touchdown. Ground personnel documented 27 battle damage holes in the structure, 2 severed hydraulic lines, 1 jammed trim actuator, 1 damaged rudder assembly. Colonel Walsh was positioned at the hard stand. He required Pritchard's assessment without delay. The initial combat evaluation of the B-24J modification, the frontal fortress designed to defend bomber formations throughout enemy territory. Pritchard shut down all 4 engines and exited the aircraft. His flight suit was saturated with sweat. His shoulders ached from wrestling the controls for 83 minutes. He faced Walsh and stated 5 words that would redirect the program. Balance the weight distribution better. Walsh authorized 17 additional evaluation missions. Perhaps the initial test was exceptional. Maybe alternative tactical employment would succeed. Perhaps distributing the B-24Js differently in formations would resolve the weight problems. The second evaluation launched on September 16th against Foggia. 7 B-24Js participated. 5 experienced significant performance degradation. The third mission on September 23rd targeted the marshalling yards at Bolzano. 12 B-24Js dispatched. 1 aircraft lost to structural failure and fighters. The remaining 11 struggled home with varying levels of controllability issues. Engineers at Consolidated's Technical Center attempted modifications. They adjusted the turret mounting, repositioned equipment aft, relocated batteries, redistributed ammunition storage. Nothing completely resolved it. The core problem persisted. The nose turret placed excessive weight forward of optimal center of gravity. The aircraft became nose-heavy. Control forces increased abnormally. Trim authority diminished dangerously. Aircraft that should have been stable required constant pilot attention. On October 7th, 5 B-24Js attacked Wiener Neustadt again. They claimed 4 German fighters destroyed. All 5 experienced severe control difficulties during formation flying. 3 crews reported they'd contemplated aborting due to controllability concerns. Concern meant vulnerability. The aircraft designed to defend formations needed continuous management to prevent loss of control. The 9th Air Force analyzed data after 19 evaluation missions. 127 sorties completed. 16 confirmed German fighter kills, 6 probable, 2 B-24Js, lost to controllability issues. Virtually every aircraft had experienced nose-heavy trim problems. Average pilot control force, 2.3 times normal versus standard B-24Hs. Average formation position, maintenance, difficulty rated severe in 34% of missions. Consolidated Chief Designer George Newman reviewed the operational data directly. The engineering team had diagnosed the issue precisely. The turret installation worked excellently. The weight distribution worked poorly. Effective frontal defense required careful weight management. Newman's conclusion was unambiguous. The B-24J modifications represented substantial advancement, imperfectly implemented. His engineers would execute comprehensive balance improvements, relocated equipment, redistributed components, enhanced structure, optimized weight positioning. On November 8th, the first B-24L departed Consolidated's assembly line. Every weight distribution deficiency from the J model addressed, repositioned equipment in aft fuselage sections, relocated battery installations to rear compartments, redistributed armor plating toward tail section, enhanced structural reinforcement throughout. The L model entered operations in January 1944. The handling improvements were substantial. The control problems disappeared. Pilots could maintain formation position without excessive effort. Control forces normalized within acceptable ranges. Trim authority returned to standard parameters. The B-24L achieved what the J model intended, a well-defended bomber that could sustain formation integrity. The Army Air Forces had invested $1,240,000 in the J model modifications. 428 aircraft, $531 million in total program expenditure for an aircraft modification that compromised controllability through poor weight management. Yet 4 innovations from the B-24J survived. 4 modifications that functioned excellently. Engineers at Wright Field examined the operational data systematically. They determined what succeeded. The power turret installation worked flawlessly when properly balanced. The electrical system enhancements supported additional equipment loads. The nose structure reinforcement was valid. Only weight distribution required optimization. Those 4 innovations transferred into every B-24L immediately. The improved nose turret from the J program entered standard production in December 1943. Consolidated designated it the Emerson A-15 nose turret system. Enhanced reliability, improved traverse rate, superior frontal coverage. 500 hours mean time between maintenance, electrically powered rotation and elevation, remote control operation with backup manual mode. Consolidated installed the system on every B-24L aircraft exiting the production facilities. These bombers deployed to all combat zones in February 1944. Crews called it the solution to frontal attack vulnerability. Before the power turrets, German fighters attacked B-24 formations head-on. The Liberator's handheld nose guns provided inadequate defense, limited accuracy, limited rate of fire. Messerschmitts and Focke-Wulfs attacked straight through formations, exploiting defensive weaknesses. The power turrets eliminated the frontal vulnerability, accurate fire from concentrated twin .50 calibers. Gunners tracked attacking fighters through computing sites and engaged with decisive firepower. German pilots who'd grown accustomed to frontal immunity suddenly encountered Liberators that could destroy them before they reached firing position. Combat reports from March showed the revolution. The 44th Bombardment Group operated B-24Ls on operations against Friedrichshafen. 21 frontal interceptions. 19 concluded with German fighters breaking off or destroyed. The remaining 2 attacked and sustained damage. 5 Messerschmitts confirmed destroyed. 0 Liberators lost to frontal attacks. Consolidated incorporated all J model innovations into subsequent B-24 production types. The M model received additional improvements in July 1944. The M model became the ultimate Liberator. Consolidated's multiple production facilities, including San Diego, Fort Worth, Tulsa, Willow Run, and Dallas. All 5 assembly lines producing B-24Ls and Ms with the validated turret and balance systems. Production increased substantially. 93 aircraft per month in March 1944, 201 per month by June, 367 per month by September. The factories manufactured 8,417 B-24L and M models before production terminated in May 1945. Every single aircraft incorporated the nose turret improvements originating in the problematic B-24J program. The 461st Bombardment Group converted to B-24Ls in April 1944. Their loss rate from frontal attack vulnerability decreased from 19% to 3%. The 484th Bombardment Group reported comparable improvements, 16% to 2%. The 451st Bombardment Group monitored their data comprehensively. Before power turrets, 38 aircraft lost to frontal attack, vulnerabilities in 8 months. After turrets, 7 lost in 16 months. 15th Air Force analysts determined the overall impact. The power nose turret reduced Liberator losses to frontal attacks by 81%. Throughout all groups, all operations, all combat theaters. By VE Day, the B-24LM equipped 24 bombardment groups in Europe, 6 groups in the Pacific, 4 in the Mediterranean, 34 groups total. Each group operated 48 to 72 aircraft on typical missions. That's approximately 2,100 B-24LLMs in active combat service simultaneously. The B-24J program lasted 5 months, completed 127 evaluation sorties, claimed 16 German fighters, cost hundreds of millions, failed significantly in initial configuration. Yet the nose turret improvements from those 428 troubled aircraft flew on 8,417 Liberator bombers, defended crews on more than 420,000 combat sorties, saved an estimated 2,100 bomber crews who would have perished to frontal attacks without it. The unbalanced fortress failed. Its innovations prevailed. The nose turret wasn't the only B-24J innovation that endured. Engineers examining the operational data identified 3 additional modifications that addressed authentic operational challenges. The electrical system enhancements on standard B-24Hs. Systems barely supported existing equipment loads. They powered defensive armament, flight instruments, communications equipment, and navigation systems marginally. Additional equipment stressed the generators beyond design capacity. Combat documentation showed electrical failures during critical combat phases. The B-24J had implemented upgraded electrical generation, enhanced capacity. Larger generators automatically managed increased loads, reduced system failures, reduced equipment malfunctions, fewer mission aborts from electrical problems, consolidated incorporated enhanced electrical systems into the B-24L. Crews reported 67% reduction in electrical system failures, fewer equipment malfunctions from power fluctuations, superior reliability during extended missions with multiple system demands. The 98th Bombardment Group recorded their results. Before enhanced electrical systems, average electrical failure rate 11% per 100 missions. After, 4% per 100 missions. The second improvement derived from examining the B-24J structural reinforcements. Engineers had strengthened the nose section to support the turret weight, enhanced framing, additional stringers, improved load paths. Consolidated coordinated with their structures division in San Diego to extend the reinforcement concept throughout the airframe. Strengthened wing attach points, enhanced fuselage frames, improved stress distribution, superior structural integrity. They designated it the Heavy-Duty Structure Program. It became standard on late production B-24Ls and all MiS. The third advancement originated from analyzing the B-24J ammunition feed systems. Gunners had reported improved reliability with the redesigned feed mechanisms, smoother operation, reduced jamming, enhanced sustained fire capability. 3 innovations from a challenged program: power nose turret, enhanced electrical systems, heavy-duty structure, all 3 integrated into the B-24LLM, all 3 preserving lives on every operation throughout the remaining war. Captain Daniel Pritchard flew 23 additional missions in B-24Ls. He finished his combat assignment in February 1944, survived, returned home to Kansas, never operated a B-24J again following that initial Wiener-Neustadt mission. However, in April, he returned to Benghazi as a standardization instructor. The first B-24Ls were arriving in numbers. He watched crews inspecting the new bombers, indicating the balanced configuration, questioning how it operated, where the improvements originated. Pritchard informed them about the B-24J, the frontal fortress that compromised itself through poor weight distribution, the bomber that became hazardous due to its own modifications, the 5-month program that failed so comprehensively it was canceled before year-end. Then, he demonstrated the turret system, explained how the weight distribution was corrected, showed the structural improvements, guided them through the balance management procedures. The crews listened carefully. They understood. The systems protecting them originated from an aircraft that nearly killed its evaluation crews, an expensive error that cost hundreds of millions, a modification program that survived only 5 months of testing. One crew member questioned Pritchard whether the B-24J was justified, worth the cost, worth the resources, worth the aircrews who flew those 428 aircraft into combat evaluation, knowing they might encounter controllability emergencies. Pritchard observed the B-24L on the hard stand, the balanced configuration evident in the proper attitude. He considered frontal engagements, about Messerschmitts attacking head-on at 12 o'clock level, about bombardiers who finally had weapons that could defend them. He considered the 8,417 bombers that would employ those systems before the conflict ended. Justified, he stated, every operation, every dollar, every control problem in Thunderhead's handling. The B-24J taught us how to advance through mistakes. The final B-24J evaluation mission operated on December 14, 1943. By January, the program was formally concluded. By March, all surviving aircraft had been modified with L model corrections or assigned to training functions. Most became crew trainers. Some were dismantled. None remained preserved in their original J-model state. No museums exhibited them. No preservation initiatives recovered them. The unbalanced fortress disappeared from documentary evidence. Yet the innovations existed everywhere. Every B-24L-M that operated over Europe, every bomber crew that survived a frontal engagement, every airman who completed their tour because Messerschmitts broke off early when power turret fire found them. The 15th Air Force conducted more than 420,000 combat sorties with B-24L-M aircraft. The power turrets engaged defensively on approximately 310,000 of those missions. Conservative projections indicate they directly averted 2,100 bomber losses. That's 21,000 aircrew members who survived. The National Museum of the United States Air Force in Dayton features a B-24M, serial number 44511228, designated Strawberry Bitch, restored to display condition. The nose turret gleams under the exhibition lights. An information placard states it was standard equipment on all L and M variants. The placard doesn't reference the B-24J, doesn't clarify where the improvements originated, doesn't relate the account of 428 aircraft that failed so dramatically their program lasted 5 months. History commemorates successes. The B-24L-M that helped achieve victory, the Liberator that became iconic, the bomber that could defend itself and return crews safely. History forgets failures, the B-24J that couldn't balance properly, the multi-hundred-million-dollar error, the frontal fortress that endangered rather than defended its crews. Yet failures teach lessons successes never can. The B-24J proved that effective concepts poorly balanced still contain effective concepts, that expensive errors can produce priceless innovations, that 5 months of evaluation can generate improvements that persist throughout conflicts. Consolidated engineers didn't regard the B-24J as failure. They regarded it as development. They preserved what worked and corrected what failed. The turret worked. The balance didn't. Therefore, they corrected the balance and retained the turret. Direct, efficient, life-saving. If this account impacted you, do something for us. Hit that like button immediately. Every single like helps the algorithm share this material with more people who value authentic history. Click that subscribe button and enable notifications. We're discovering forgotten accounts from historical records constantly. Accounts about engineers and aviators and crews who converted failures into victories. Real innovation, real bravery. Post a comment now and share your location. Are you viewing from the United States, United Kingdom, Australia, Canada, or elsewhere? This audience extends across the entire world. You're not merely a viewer. You're contributing to preserving these legacies. Share where you're from. Share if someone in your family served. Just let us know you're here. Thank you for viewing. And thank you for ensuring the B-24J crews aren't lost to history. They failed spectacularly, but their failure saved thousands.